Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode 127 today for the Singapore Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys didn't miss the previous one at the Italian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A very chaotic one, as Italy usually is, and a lucky escape in many ways for us, of course, because I feel like we could have easily DNF'd in what was a very close incident with Lewis Hamilton spinning right in front of us and then making up some time. But then in the end, of course, no matter how much kind of a comeback we had in our teammates' world, it was pretty calm, despite there being safety cars to also help us out. We just couldn't quite do anything about Lando winning the Italian Grand Prix and winning his third race of this season, and that did cut the deficit. We're still in the lead of the championship because we had that cushion, of course, from what happened at the Belgium Grand Prix in Hungary, but it did cut the deficit to a bit more of a place where essentially now we do need to worry a little bit and make sure we kind of stop the momentum. Maybe we know sometimes in the AI, they win a race, it's very easy for them then to build on that and continue to do very well in the next qualifying and the race subsequently. So we need to make sure we can try and get a stranglehold in that. And Singapore, I think I mentioned at the end of last episode, is usually quite happy hunting grounds. We've got quite lucky a few times at Singapore, I will admit, but because of that, it's quite happy hunting grounds. There's been some absolutely chaotic races here, but whatever happens, we seem to actually luck in quite well and still manage to come back through and slice through all that chaos. So looking forward to it, but also at the same time, it's going to be still a challenge because tyre wear is actually one of the most difficult circuits for tyre wear, with that internal carcass temperature being so difficult to manage, especially on the soft compounded tyre. And then obviously it's just a very challenging circuit. Qualifying is going to be quite close as ever, as we've clearly seen, especially in the last few episodes, how tight things have been in qualifying and how up and down certain teams can go depending on the circuit. And that's another thing, is this is a very different circuit to Italy, and Italy, even though it was fairly different to Spa, we did get a bit of a shock at Italy of how quick certain teams were. Obviously Williams, that was a madness to see how far up the order Jack Aitken was, and even Giotto, both Williams made it through into Q3 last time out. I suspect probably not the same here, and then vice versa, we may see teams maybe like Red Bull, Ferrari coming back strong and looking good, because Ferrari did look very good over one lap at the Hungarian Grand Prix, of course, where the power meant a little bit less potentially, and the chassis was more important, where it seems like Ferrari do have a good chassis and aero compared to maybe the engine speed they have in this season, and that shows in Q1. Lando, no surprise, see him top, kind of a typical Q1 for us. We're a little bit slow there, but if we look at the other AI cars, Leclerc right up there, but also Giovinazzi not too far off. Red Bull in the hands of Ricciardo actually looking pretty strong there, but the Mercedes looked very weak for some reason, and I think we didn't see it quite there at the bottom, but I think that was actually Gasly getting knocked out in Q1, and we'll confirm that for you as we go through into the Q2 to Q3 screen to see who actually makes it through into the top 10 shootout. But we've had a few howlers from Mercedes in qualifying where I don't know what goes on with their AI team, but they just seem to either get caught up in traffic, don't get the time in, but another disaster maybe from them. Even after that, time and time again, they show they have the race pace for it, so they're kind of doing a McLaren, but even more so because they're bottling it completely and being nowhere near the top 10 shootout. So Q2, then we're through, no issues there. Ocon fast of all, showing McLaren does have some speed, but Hamilton gets knocked out. But there you go, Verstappen, what's happened to them? What's happened to Mercedes? But Hamilton had a woeful one as well. He's last in Q2 here, and Verstappen's out in P14, but confirmation, yeah, Gasly didn't even make it through into this part of qualifying. And then also, interesting to note, in the top 10 shootout here, Lando is the only man who managed to get through on the medium compounded tyre. Now, that is very important, because depending on if there's rain, maybe that might change things, a safety car might change things, but normally, if you start on mediums here at Singapore, that could open you up to the one stop. It's not a very enticing one stop, because it's quite a long way to go on mediums and then hard tyres, but it is a way to go, and he's the only man there. So if it's all kind of calm in the race, that's a bit worrying, because that means Lando has a very easy run to being on his own in clean air. And as if the realization of that wasn't worse enough, going into Q3 then, we're met with a car issue.
We've got a leak in the hydraulic system, so it's going to be a few minutes before we can get you out on track.
So this is a pretty bad issue to have in the last part of qualifying. This is nearly just over 7 minutes we're having to be sat in the garage, which is just over half the session that we've got, basically. So it means we are going to be relegated to having one run. As it stands there, I think that was Lando on provisional pole position there. Ocon was right up there as well, but it means, the pressure's on, because he's on provisional pole. That could change, but he's already way up there, at least in the front row, I'd say. So we have got this one shot to do it as well, which is very annoying, especially in a circuit like this where I feel like it's good to have those 2 laps where you can have the first one, and if there's areas you can improve, you know where to improve, and you go out and you can use the delta time to also give you a good indication. But right now, I'm just driving around blind, not knowing how quick I'm going really compared to everyone else, so I'm just trying my best. But there's a bit of oversteer and understeer kicking in the last sector there. You saw a bit of a twitch, and also trying to as we dance the car around in a bit too much as we actually graze the wall, and we have a bit of wing damage. So it's not going to affect us too much through the final corner, and across the line I was wincing at that because the last sector did not feel comfy. To my surprise though, in the end, disaster and crisis averted. P4, I will take that, and in the end Lando does not get pole. For once, for a good while, a McLaren shows their pace on Saturday, and it's Ocon on pole position. Lando in second place. Still very good though from him, but he'll be directly ahead of us then for tomorrow's grid. And, you know, with that car issue, having 1 run only, I was thinking, okay, we're just not going to get a good lap in, are we? Going to be like P7 or 8 or something like that. I'll take P4 alongside Leclerc, who's done a monster job, but to be fair, his teammates there in P7. So again, like I said, showing that this circuit being so different to Italy and Spa, you can see Ferrari able to show their strengths of their chassis in their car. Red Bull in there as well. You got Russell continuing to do an amazing job. Maybe not a crazy job like he did at Hungary, let's say, or beforehand at Silverstone, but still the fact he's dragged an Alfa Romeo up into P9 there is very good. Weird not to see the Mercedes cars, but the 2 racing points there in the middle. But we've got a very interesting race on our hands. Ocon being ahead of Lando maybe gives us half a chance of him being kind of bunched in with us, but he is the man on mediums, everyone else on softs. I don't know, I just feel like Lando has a massive advantage going into the race, but I guess we'll see. Let's go to the grid.
Against the spectacular backdrop of the Singapore skyline, Formula One returns once again to do battle in what tends to become something of an endurance race, with the notorious sauna-like temperatures in the cockpit making for an extremely physically challenging Grand Prix. It's a 3.1 mile lap here at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, with 47% taken at full throttle. It's hot, humid and bumpy around the 13 lefts and the 10 rights of mostly slow corners, but we should see speeds of up to 200 miles per hour along the Raffles Boulevard. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty: positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Esteban Ocon lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, the owner driver, Lance Stroll and Albon, Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, Russell and Carlos Sainz, Bottas, De Vries, Jack Aitken and Verstappen, Magnussen, Hamilton, Pierre Gasly and Luca Giotto, Kvyat, Latifi, Schumacher and Nobuharu Matsushita. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So there's no monsoon rain or anything like that here around Singapore. This one is going to be a dry Grand Prix, so it's going to be all about the tyre wear, the strategy coming into this, and well, it's not really that much of a complex one. It's just a case of we're going to keep our tyres in check as best we can the first part of the race to make sure we don't lose too much time before that first pit stop. Then on the mediums are pretty okay tyres as long as you don't shoot them too much. Traffic, a little bit of an issue. Maybe we catch up to cars that are on the one stop, the slower cars that is, obviously, because the one car of Lando in the top 10 on mediums, he's probably going to have a massive advantage after that first round of pit stops because he's just been clean air on his own. So like I said just before at the end of qualifying, he's got a massive advantage going into this one right now, and we kind of need there to be a bit of chaos. Like I said, hopefully Ocon can turn up and kind of hold him back a little bit just in that initial first part of the race, and then we can see what we do, but we're just going to try and drive our best out there. We know the car is quick, but is it quick enough to overturn a one-stop via two-stop? I'm not sure. Let's see. Singapore's always been a pretty tasty one, though, in this career mode series, so I'm sure this season will be no different as we go now to 5 red lights on the floodlights here, and we're underway for the Singapore Grand Prix, and it's a slow one from Norris on mediums, but then Ocon actually gets bogged down in the second phase of the start, and Lando tries to go side by side, and he actually gets pinched out by Leclerc, and the Ferrari is flying high in P2. We get done around the outside by Lance Stroll. Look at the acceleration from that Racing Point car. He's done me making a bit of contact with him as you try and overdo it a little bit in the next right-hander, trying to catch some slipstream, but now Albon is there right up tucked behind me. Look at that in the mirrors. We're going to go defensive to the inside. Albon's on the outside. We have to actually fully defend the corner from the Thai Brit and squeeze them out, because those Racing Points, really quick fire start there. I was too focused on Lando and the Ferrari, just didn't see Stroll come out of nowhere on the right-hand side of us, but surprised to see the Ferrari looking so quick, but also at the same time Lando is on the mediums, so that's the difference there. The Ferrari on the softer compound, able to make the move up into P2, but speaking of making a move, we make a very easy move in the end. It is actually round the inside of Stroll, so despite looking very quick on lap 1 at least, the Racing Point car eventually, once we find the groove onto lap 2, we're back up into P4, and we're on the back of Lando, who's being held up massively by the Ferrari. So despite being quick on lap 1, Leclerc now looking slower of the two, and actually Lando goes very defensive, and we have a little bit of a half look around the outside. Probably shouldn't have even tried to do it, because that's such a difficult place to pass on the inside, let alone the outside there, but you can definitely see on the minimap, Ocon's waltzed away now. He's got a fair few seconds now on everyone in the lead of this race. So this is well, you're seeing how slow the Ferrari is, and there's a absolutely massive screen freeze. Really big apologies there. You didn't really see what happened there, but effectively Lando was trying to look at Leclerc on the inside and actually open up the door for me, and we've made a very nice little cheeky move to go around his outside to the inside for the next right-hander, and we're up into P3. But to be honest, if you think about it in real terms as well, in like a real-life scenario, we would be the car that would be told to be let pass, because we're on the different strategy. We have to run away with this a little bit on the soft compound tire. And so here we go now, making a move on the Ferrari. Leclerc, though, really good under braking, but in the second phase of the corner, able to get him. But you can already see maybe there, the tyre wear is already affecting me, because the rear end snapping and squirming literally every moment I put on that. I mean, look at that. I mean, such a 2 saves in like 2 corners there. So the tyres are very much going off. So literally on the very next lap, lap 6, we're coming in, and even we can't even slow down the car properly for the pit lane entry, and we just about to slow things down, and we're now in for our pit stop. Ocon came in on the previous lap, so he's got a bit of an undercut on us, but so that is it now. Lando is now up into P1, and he's on medium, so he's going on for at least another, I would say, 10 laps from here. So this is the moment where, well, it kind of makes or breaks the race, basically, if he's going to go off and just dominate this win, because he's the only man in the top 10 that was on that strategy, or is there half a chance that we're on the quicker strategy? You know, if we're all not caught up in too much traffic, could we get our heads down and use the fresher rubber, the fresher mediums to maybe chase after him? Let's see. But Ocon is the car ahead of us on the road, but we've now got a safety car on the outlap, because there's been a massive crash there with Lance Stroll, I think it was, but Giovinazzi there with some debris. It's Leclerc that he's out after having such a good start and great quali, but he's been caught up with Lance Stroll in the wall, and also a third car there, I think, as well. So it's a full course yellow. Safety car is out. We're now on lap number 10, so the safety car is now coming in, and Lando is at the head of this pack. So this safety car, actually, thinking about it, may help us a little bit, because now if you think about it, Lando's advantage that he had of a whole pit stop ahead of us has been eroded. I know we're not right next to him. We're in P11, and we're going to try and get to the inside of Ocon, who's being very slow behind that Alpine and Matsushita, who almost went to the back of the McLaren. But you can also see my tyres haven't exactly heated up, because the rear end is all over the shop there, basically, and Giovinazzi was right up my gearbox, so we're trying to weave around to heat up the tyres. But yeah, so effectively Lando's lead and advantage has been eroded a bit, so actually it's quite maybe a good thing that safety car came out for us at least. But let's see now how we can get through this traffic, and at the moment we're not getting through it. Myself and Ocon are both stuck behind the Alpine still. Lap number 12, Ocon now down the inside, and we're just trying to be patient, see where we can go, and there we are, being a bit patient and opportunistic there. Matsushita with it, a lock up on the front left, and we just nip down the inside, easy does it, up into P10. That's the kind of move we want to make. You know, it's a move where I don't even need to put that much effort in to make the move. It just kind of opens up for us there. But now still again stuck behind Ocon. It's hard to overtake him, but we're going to try our best, and the gap opened up again on the outside, and we go the long way round at the hairpin, and we have just absolutely embarrassed Ocon there. He's been the fastest man of the entire race so far, but he absolutely fell asleep at the hairpin, and we've done him in the most weirdest way possible at such a hard overtaking spot anyway, on the inside, let alone the outside. And then we slice through Kvyat very easily into turn 1, up into P4, making very good progress. This is, we're going to catch up to Magnussen next up in the Haas. And then we've got Bottas, who's got a penalty with a 5 second then in second place, now for AlphaTauri. And then at this stage, I believe it's still then in Lando. Yeah, look at the minimap, that fluoro dot in first place. But behind, there's a yellow flag, and Sainz in the Red Bull is pulling across with a mechanical failure, and that'll be a retirement for him. And I wonder, with the yellow flags there, yes, I was correct. This safety car is called out for the second time in like 5 laps, and that is for Sainz parking in a bit of a dangerous spot, I guess. Obviously, we saw Italy, the FIA called out the safety car for Magnussen being stricken at a pretty sideways part of the circuit. So 2 times in a row now, the FIA have kind of sprung the safety car very easily, really, because I feel like even Sainz was quite away from people, but I guess if someone was to have a brake issue, they'll go straight towards where Sainz's car is. So you can maybe understand why this safety car has been called out. But yeah, so 2 safety cars, and we're not even halfway through this race. Bonkers. I mean, Singapore, the real life stat is there's always at least 1 safety car at this race, and you can see why, I guess, and it translates to the game at least. So much has already happened in this race, and we've got a whole half race left here. But at the moment, we're in first place now. Verstappen second, Latifi in third in the Alfa Romeo, Gasly, and then Schumacher looks like to be the first of the kind of guys on hard tyres going the distance. But yeah, we've still got 1 more stop to make. I believe Lando has made his pit stop underneath this safety car, so I think his advantage has grown because he got a free pit stop then under this safety car. So I don't know, I think the cards are very much still stacked against us, but at this moment in time we do lead the race, and we're going to lead this safety car restart. Now we're trying to be a bit cheeky here and slowing everyone right down to try and give us the best advantage as we now decide to go, but a bit of wheel spin there in first gear, and in the end of it actually backfires my plan, and Verstappen gets a great run into turn 1. He's very aggressive to the inside, he pushes us wide off circuit. We have to cut across the curb. That was a little bit cheeky. Verstappen, though, gets his nose down the inside. Doesn't matter if we cut the curb. He's still on the inside, and he's actually got the acceleration to match it. We go with a bold dive to the inside to try and get back into first. We do so, but we actually compromise our run, and Verstappen's there, and Latifi is also there on the right. It's going to be 3 wide into the next left-hander. Latifi round the outside. He's actually gone and done us, and we almost get pinched by both him and Verstappen, and he's still there, and he's now sent it. He's made some contact. We've nearly been put in the wall by the Canadian. The man who spun us at Spa has just spun us in this race, metaphorically, because he's up into P2. Verstappen's taken the lead to the master plan of the safety car restart. Completely backfired. My tyres went up in temperature, wheels spinning everywhere, and then I don't know what that was on that straight. I just got such a poor exit. I was, okay, fair enough, Verstappen got a good run on me, but I don't know where on earth Latifi got that speed to get a run on us without DRS there. But he had the balls to then go around the outside, and he overtook us. So here we are then, lap 18, looking to try and re-overtake him now. Big ballsy move, and we absolutely nail the apex at turn 1 to get back into second place. And now we've got to push like an absolute stabbed rat to try and catch up to Verstappen, who's got a hefty gap, but we crossed the line on the left there in slow-mo, you saw, and we've got a 3-second penalty for extending the track. And if that wasn't bad enough, literally as we enter the pit lane, we get a penalty for speeding. It's gone from bad to worse to horrendous. I don't actually know what actually happened at this point in the race. My jaw was just on the floor at this point. Like, we got the 3-second time penalty for extending a part of a track where, if you watch back previous laps, I went that wide at that corner so many other times. So I don't know where the consistency is of the track limits, but I got a 3-second penalty for that. And then as we enter the pit lane, I think it was right on the edge, and we got speeding in the pit lane. I think we grazed the wall as we entered, and that's actually what kind of didn't help us, because I think that made my car jolt a bit and get that speed. But now, lap 20, we've got a 3rd safety car in this race, and Bottas has had another incident. He had a penalty beforehand, but he's had an incident in collision with Giotto there. But so we've got so much to process here. So we've got a 3rd safety car, but on top of that anyway, we're driving around with an 8-second penalty So that's 8 seconds that gets added on to wherever we finish in this race. And because that was my final pit stop, which annoyingly I made like just before this safety car came out. So again, we're getting screwed over so much. Like I talked so much about getting lucky at Singapore. We've had no luck in this race because now we've got an 8-second penalty. We made a pit stop before the safety car came out, so we didn't even get a free pit stop out of that. Just mental. And so at the moment, let's check out this pecking order then. So under the safety car, in the lead of this race is Mick Schumacher in the Haas on hard tyres. Then you've got George Russell in the Alfa Romeo, Aitken in a Williams, then Magnussen in the other Haas, an Alpine. Then is the next recognisable top car of Ocon in the McLaren, AlphaTauri, and then you've got Hamilton, the other McLaren. So I don't even know where Lando is then. So where is Lando? Because I can't see him in this lineup. And we're waiting as we go down there. And so there is my car, and then there is Lando behind us. So actually, hang on a minute. I haven't even realised this the entire time. We didn't keep track of where Lando was. So we're where we are, you know, behind Gasly now, and behind Verstappen. But that is our teammate, Norris, who was in the lead, and remember, was doing a one-stop, I feel. He's now somehow behind me on a set of mediums. So the only way I think that's possible is maybe Lando did not do a one-stop. Maybe off the medium tyres, he came onto a set of softs or another set of mediums. Whatever the case is, we're on the safety car restart now, lap 23, and we are behind Gasly and Verstappen, down in P14. But Lando is behind us even further in P60. So here we are then on the restart. We've got 8 laps to go of this race. Bit of a sprint race then for all of us. But, well, the kind of top players in this championship are outside the points. I've got an 8-second penalty, but we're going to go for it to the inside of Gasly and just try and get as high as we can, basically. For the rest of this race, I just have to drive flat out, knowing that I'm going to be 8 seconds back from where I am. And that's even more difficult, made by the fact that with the safety car, obviously all of us bunched up together. It would have been actually easier for me not to have a safety car, because then there probably would have been an 8-second gap between a few positions. But now 8 seconds can cover the top, well, 5 as it is right now, probably, out on that mini-map, as Verstappen makes a very nice move on Ricciardo. I wanted to try and join him through that on the left hand, didn't quite work, but so instead we're going to try and size up the move through this next portion as we go towards what used to be the Singapore Sling. Line up this pass, Ricciardo goes defensive, and it's a very ballsy and aggressive move on the outside, late on the brakes, and it needs to be done as we're up into only P12. But I've got to aim even higher, because even if I'm 8th on the road, it's not going to be 8th. It's going to be outside the point. So I need to basically not waste any time here and make all the moves when I can. And we're going to set up a beautiful little dummy there as we went to the right, then the left, switchback move on Verstappen. And oh, did you see that? I think Verstappen body hopped the curb and almost jumped into me and nearly pushed me into the wall. And we just about survived that. And we're in now P11. So our bravery is being awarded here. We're on lap 24 to 25 now, 6 laps to go. We're only now having DRS enabled and only now making a move for the top 10 with Albon here on the hard compounded tyres. The rest, everyone ahead of us is on hards. So we, in theory, should be the fastest man here. So it's basically now a case of I've got to drive flat out, and then we'll see where we are and see where 8-second penalty gets us. But ahead of us, Ocon is now getting an engine failure. It's literally everything's happening in this race. Ocon's now out. The man who was right at the forefront of this race now is out of this one. We now go for a late dive bomb on the Japanese driver in the Alpine, Mashishita, up into P8, and 6 laps to go. Could we, I mean, to be fair, look at the mini-map. Schumacher in the lead and Russell P2 and Aitken P3. They're not too far away from us. We could legitimately, I think, get into first place on the road. It's another question of where that gets us at the end of this race. And remember, with all of this, Lando is behind us out the points. So we've still got a good chance of somehow actually getting points on our teammate, on our championship rival, as we're now dueling Hamilton. We made a nice cheeky move at the inside of the hairpin. We finished the move off just about, as we had some understeer there, but we had to finish the move off on the next straight into the next right-hander. Up into P7. Can we get to Prix now on the AlphaTauri? Looking around the outside, you can see the grip is there. I mean, the front end is so much more sharper than any of these guys on the hard compounded tyre. We go around the outside in the same corner. We got a penalty for extending that earlier on in the race, but a nice little move there. Up into P6. Kvyat up next. Hamilton, as I look behind me, is making a move on De Vries, but we're looking ahead of ourselves at the Alpine car. But look at that up the road. Schumacher and Russell are side by side. Russell goes for the dive bomb, and so that's Russell battling Mick Schumacher for the race lead. And remember, even if I overtake all these cars, that still may be the fight for the win, because I've got an 8-second penalty, and I don't think I can gain 8 seconds on this entire lot. They're in slower cars, I'll admit, but not that much slower to do that in what is now only 3 laps to go in this race. So we carve our way through, made the move on Fiat, make the move on Magnussen, we're up into P4. I can see the entire podium ahead of me, but we're on lap 28, so we've got 3 full laps after this one. I don't think we can do this. I'm going to try my best, but I just don't think we're going to do this. I don't think we're going to even end up on the podium, but we make a ballsy move on Aiken there. No contact made with the Brit. Just a really nice dive bomb, and he leaves us the room to work with. We're up into P2, and now it only remains to overtake George Russell in the Alfa Romeo, a race winner this season, remember, at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and then Mick Schumacher, of all people, in the Haas. But Russell is making my life very difficult. Look at how defensive he's going, and he just chops us off there. I don't have quite the confidence to make the move, and then he slows us up. He brake checks us through the next right-hander. So a bit of bad blood in the mouth maybe for Russell after we dropped him after half a season last year. Can we make the move? Yes, we can, finally, in the place where we made the move on Ricciardo earlier. Punchy as ever. We're up into P2. 1 car left to overtake, and we'll be in the lead somehow after all of this bonkersness. We're going to be in the lead of this Grand Prix, I think, because obviously the Haas is not a quick car, so as much as Schumacher might be doing a great job here, it's going to be futile for him to defend against me. So here we go on the outside. Really easy move. But that's the thing now. I can't even be excited about getting into first place. So yeah, we're in first on the road, but I've got an 8-second penalty. And at the moment, I've only just overtaken Schumacher. So now we've got 2 laps to go. I've just got to see what this car can do. How much of a gap can I bridge to Schumacher in P2 there? And I've got to almost hope in a way that Schumacher is so slow in that Haas that he backs everyone up, and that allows me to build that gap, because the bigger the gap I have, the higher I'm going to finish. I don't know where that is right now, in all honesty. We're just going to have to see how it goes. But here we are then, on the last lap of the Grand Prix. I think the gap right now is about 5 seconds, I would say, to Schumacher that we're building. But there is a fight going. Look at George Russell go. And remember, this is the fight for the race win, potentially, because Russell is round the outside. Schumacher defends. But remember, with my penalty, this is the fight for the race lead. It may be P2 on the road, but it'll be P1 at the checkered flag. And that could be crucial to maybe, just maybe, am I going to have to say the words, Mick Schumacher winning a F1 Grand Prix here in our career mode in a Haas. That is literally the worst car on the grid by a mile this season, because he's still there in P2. We've got Russell next up, then Aiken. That's your podium. That would be your podium, because look at this. No one's overtaking anyone. It's a kind of classic train at Singapore with the AI, and I'm trying to build a gap, but I can tell you it's not 8 seconds. It's definitely not anywhere near 8 seconds. It's going to be enough to maybe get some points today, but nowhere near enough to get on the podium, I don't think. Here we are, back to our POV. You can see on the top left there, it's just about 5 seconds built, so it's not going to be enough to even get on the podium, because Magnussen is 6.8 behind us here. So as we come through the final corner on the last lap to round the bend in first place, but it's not going to be first place, because this man, Mick Schumacher, wins in Formula 1. The Schumacher name is going to be on the top step of an F1 podium once again in a Haas car, with Russell in second and Jack Aiken in third. That is your podium. Schumacher, Russell, Aiken in a Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams. Madness.
They've endured the harsh conditions here in Singapore to pull off a spectacular victory. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out, but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
The quality and fantastic result of the Haas team will have been noticed by everyone else out there today. You can see why everyone's taking them so seriously. These drivers will be hot property by the end of the season.
Well, I'm not going to lie, about 2/3 of that way through that race, I was quite annoyed at how that race went for us. We got so unlucky, I felt, with the penalties we got, with the safety car timings. But in the end, you got to kind of just smile and kind of just be in awe of that podium. Mick Schumacher wins an F1 Grand Prix, and the entire podium is a madness. Schumacher, Russell, Aitken, and then in the end of it, then with us, we did the max we could have done, get into first, build the gap, and in the end we got P6 for that, which I'll take. I think we earned that P6 by doing all that hard work of overtaking every car in sight ahead of us to get back into the race lead as it was on the road, and then try and build as big of a gap as we can. And we got 5 seconds in 2 laps. I think that's pretty impressive, to be honest, and shows how slow that Haas probably also is, and how much more impressive it is then that Schumacher on the last lap there actually defended Russell. And we know how quick Russell has been in that Alfa Romeo. He defended against him and defended his race win effectively on the last lap. Madness there. Absolute. We've had some absolute insane results this season. And it's the 7th season down the line. I didn't know it was going to get even more bonkers than it already had done in previous seasons. But there we go. Singapore never fails to deliver on the F1 game. Guys, if you did enjoy this one, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.